Hi everybody and welcome to Heel Heat. My name is George Coles. This is my tag team partner, Crash Holly.
Thanks, Hardcore. Gary Rhodes, everybody.
And we're going to go right into this. This is our TNA edition of the show. The first thing we had the GM, Hulk Hogan, coming out.
Brother.
Announcing that he has basically a four-man leadership team to go up against the Aces and Eights. The four men are Samoa Joe, Jeff Hardy, Magnus, and Kurt Angle.
The Hardy thing, I'm still, I realize he was a champion and stuff like that, but I don't know. I'm happy with Magnus being part of the four top, though.
Well, here's the issue I had with it. Hardy suggests that the four of them wrestled to become the #1 contender. My thing is, if you're putting these guys together as a team to go up against Aces and Eights, why is the first thing they're doing is wrestling each other? That doesn't build team chemistry to me. I mean, you could easily put them in tag teams.
It's almost like WCW logic.
WCW logic always fails.
I mean, honestly, where's it at?
2 turntables and a microphone.
Gone, motherfucker. Anyways, so speaking of logic,
well, we're going to lump off, was it 4 or 5 segments together?
I think it was 5.
But I think it basically took up about 25 minutes of the show altogether. Bully Ray explaining the whole Aces and Eights angle from start till now.
I thoroughly enjoyed the segments. I'm not a fan of, what we call that?
Replays.
Recaps or whatever like that. But this was awesome. It explained...
You're not a fan of recaps, but we do 2 to 3 recap shows a week.
Well, I'm talking about on their show. When I'm watching wrestling, I don't want to see what happened in wrestling last week or whatever. Calm down. I mean, all of SmackDown is a recap show too, though.
Yeah, basically.
But anyways, I'm not a fan of that when I'm watching it. But I tell you what, this was awesome. It explained all the aspects of everything that happened in the last night.
All the turns, why the guys turned, how TNA could have kept guys like it showed at one point Garrett Bischoff and Devon asking Hulk Hogan to help them fight Aces and Eights and him turning them down, which is how they became part of the group. Wes Briscoe, he pretty much explained himself, but they went over it again, why he joined. Anderson getting jumped and no one coming to his aid, why he joined. And how basically Bully Ray twisted everything to work into his advantage. I thoroughly liked it, like you said. I thought it was a great segment, added a lot of value to this show.
The next segment, or next match, I really did enjoy. I mean, it was a good match, but I'm tired of seeing it.
Chavo Guerrero and Sean Hernandez versus Austin Aries and Bobby Roode.
And don't get me wrong, I like Roode and Aries. Chavo and Anderson still.
I don't mind them. The thing I think the problem is there's only really 3 actual tag teams in TNA. You got these 2 and then you got Bad Influence. And it makes for stale matches because there's going to be some combination of the 3, usually with Chavo and Hernandez because they're the only face team at this point. I mean, they broke up Joey Ryan and Matt Morgan without explanation. They could have 2 of the guys from Aces and Eights become a team. They could throw Joe and Magnus back together as a team, but what's the logic there after, what happened with them?
True. No, I like Bad Intention, and I like the fact what they...
Bad Influence,
sorry. And I like what they did to them, to Aries and Roode after the match. Mm-hmm. Even though they're both heels, I like a good heel versus heel match. Like when Roode would wrestle Aries. Those were some classic matches. Just the funny spots. I could imagine the 4 of these guys against each other, what kind of match they could throw together.
But most likely we'll have another 3-way.
Exactly.
Speaking of 3-ways, and I'm not talking about the one I had with your girlfriend last night, we had Kenny King versus Zema Ion versus Sanjay Dutt for the X Division title.
Did you put it back in the box when you were done?
I sure did.
Good. I mean, I don't, at least hose it off next time. Anyways, this was an excellent match.
I thought so as well. It was I think it was a good way to show the new changes that they have in the X Division, which we're going to talk about a little bit in a second here. I enjoyed the work. I know me and you have talked about Kenny King and Zema Ion both being the pillars for the new X Division and the X Division going forward. And Sanjay Dutt's a guy that's always to be counted on as putting on great matches.
Sanjay Dutt is gold.
Yeah.
And the addition of him in this match was spot on awesome. He could help these younger guys really
work psychology into it and all that stuff. I enjoyed it. I really did. I thought it was good. Coming off of that, while we're talking about the X Division, we'll talk about the former X Division champion and our question of the week from last week. With RVD's contract reportedly being up, do you think that TNA should re-sign him? Now, before we get into our opinion, we have some from friends of ours. The first is from Metal Roller 45. RVD isn't worth bringing back. They could use that spot for a Brian Cage or another indie star. Also from Josh Adams. Not really. RVD doesn't do much for me. What do you think, Gary?
I hate to say it because I've always been a fan of RVD, but the thing is, I don't see him relevant anymore. I see him like as a Rey Mysterio. You know, they're past their prime. They're not really trying anything else anymore. They're just relying on their name value. And that's good in a way, but you're trying to build up a company, you're trying to build up a division. Like I said, they could use the money from RVD and spend it in better places. And I hate saying that because I like RVD.
My opinion of this, and I'm a big, huge RVD fan, and probably have been for almost 20 years now, since he was in the original ECW. I don't think he's a good money spend either. It kind of strikes me, and it's been in a lot of the behind-the-scenes things that they said about WCW, how guys would come from WWE to WCW and look down on the product, therefore not giving their all in that product. It's kind of like what Rob Van Dam is doing. I don't know if he's doing that per se, or his body's just that banged up that he can't give his best effort anymore. But either way, I don't think he's worth whatever they're spending for him. Yes, he's got great name value. Yes, he has a tremendous fan base, which I include myself as one of them. However, like you said and like they touched on, you could use that money to build the X Division with the new changes, bring in some tag teams. You know, there's a ton of great tag teams on the indie circuit, and like we said, they have a brevity of them in TNA. They could bring 2 tag teams in on, even 3 tag teams for the same price they probably pay Rob Van Dam, and light the division back on fire.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of divisions and changes to divisions, our question of the week for next week is the X Division has gone through some changes. Basically, the main changes are every match from now on out is going to be a 3-way match. There's a weight limit of 220 pounds, and the person that takes a fall in the match does not get to be in the next X Division match, but the guy that doesn't lose but doesn't win automatically gets in. So basically the next match would have 2 or 3 guys with 1 change.
So it would be King, Ion, and someone replacing Dutt.
Exactly. So with that being said, what do you guys think of the changes? Do you think it's going to make the X Division better? Do you think it's going to be worse? Do you think with the new rules in place that it limits them? The X Division's always been about no limits, that they can do anything. I'd like to hear your opinions. Hit us up on our Facebook. Hit us up on our Twitter. Let us know what you think about their changes. And guess what? Put it where else?
Put it down there.
Right down there in our comments. And we'll talk about that more at length next week in our question of the week. Now, coming off of that and going back to the show, we had Taryn Terrell coming out to basically get her punishment for her part in attacking Gail Kim, for Gail Kim hitting her, which brought out Gail, brought out Brooke Hogan. You know, speaking of logic, like we talked about in the front of the show, logic here, it reminds me, remember when they had the WWE had the referee strike because wrestlers were manhandling them? I don't think that Taryn should have been punished for sticking up to herself when Gail hit her.
No.
And it ends up that Taryn gets fired and hired as a wrestler.
Didn't see that coming.
Yeah, it was very obvious that was where they were going. The thing that I dislike about it, now don't get me wrong, it's not saying anything bad about Taryn Terrell. But she's just going to be another pretty face in the division. She's not a tremendous wrestler. She's not Gail Kim. She's not Tara. She's not going to bring anything that's not already there. She did bring something as a referee because it was so different having a woman referee in the women's matches.
I hope they stick to that and send another woman in to be a referee for their matches.
What about SoCal Val? What is she doing? I mean, they have her on roster, right? We see her.
Mm-hmm. All she's doing is grabbing coats. Exactly. Put a referee shirt on her. Anyways, things that also don't make sense was to be the next match.
Well, we didn't talk about the end part of it when
Ray yeah, I'm sorry.
It was pretty much running down his wife and chases her to the back. She gets all emotional, yells and screams.
I hate you. Oh, Rob. Oh, anyway.
And then that acting was as good as Brooke Hogan's.
Better.
Yeah, I wouldn't go that far.
Well, look, you know, she has a few things that I don't have, like a giant Adam's apple. I just got a normal one. I don't know. I just don't. Brooke Hogan.
And her last name's famous in wrestling, unlike yours is.
I'm a grandson of a plumber, bitch. Anyways.
Then we had, coming off of that, going back into the matches, we had Matt Morgan versus Joseph Park. The match wasn't bad. The problem I have is the evolution of the Joseph Park character is he should have been more of a factor into this match. He shouldn't have got beat that easy by Matt Morgan, in my opinion. It should have been a more competitive match. Wouldn't you agree?
Oh, I definitely agree.
We've seen him go from a guy that in the beginning of the Joseph Park character got very little offense in and caught lucky wins to now where he's actually adding offense in to even to where he's becoming the attacker. And I think this was a step backwards for his character. I do understand that it's going to be an ongoing feud, but I don't know, it just felt out of place.
Here's my idea to close the match. Park gets some color. Goes all ape shit crazy. Hits the black hole slam out of nowhere, gets a quick pin. He's in disbelief that he just did this, turns around, catches the carbon footprint, and he keeps it going. You know? You don't want to have a clean victory if you're going to start a rivalry.
Wrestling booking's easy. I mean,
there you go.
I hate to say it.
You're welcome.
I hate to say it, but keep it simple, stupid. And we come back. We have one.
Speaking of simple, no.
We had AJ Styles coming out to do an interview with Mike Tenay, basically to explain what had happened last week. Before AJ could say anything, Taz tries to recruit him into the Aces and Eights. Before he can answer Taz, James Storm comes out, says his little bit. They do a little spiel. AJ just walks away. And I really think when I see this reminds me so much of the Sting character.
Sting.
Yeah, in the NWO versus Sting angle. This is what this reminds me of, and it's going down a lot of the same roads. And not that that's a bad thing, because that was a very great angle.
And it's been over 7 years.
Yeah, and it's been over 7 years. It's just for old school guys like us, it's still something that we remember fondly. And, you know, I don't have a problem with it. I like the feud going forward, Storm and Styles. I think they're going to put on some great matches together.
And this is what Storm's been needing, too. Because Storm's been really facing a hodgepodge of different guys.
Yeah, he's been a man without a cause.
He has been. You know, they started him with Storm, or with Rude. Then they break that rivalry up. Then they started him with the rivalry with the Robbies for a little bit, and they stopped that, you know. I'm glad to see him have a long feud. AJ's got, 8 more months or 9 more months till he can have a title shot?
Something like that.
You know, it'd be perfect to build these two up against each other.
Exactly.
And you're keeping Storm away from the belt. AJ can't go near the belt. So it's, you know, that's perfect.
Now, coming off of that, we had our main event of the night. We had Samoa Joe versus Magnus versus Kurt Angle versus Jeff Hardy, the winner becoming the #1 contender for the title.
Hell of a match.
I thought it was a really good match. The only problem I have is Hardy winning, And here is my problem. Same thing that I had the problem with Chavo and Hernandez versus Aries and Rude. And a lot of people, I haven't seen people complain about it here, but they're complaining with the build for the WrestleMania card that we have rematches. We've seen Hardy versus Bully Ray a few different times in the last 6 months. Another Hardy Bully Ray match, while it could be great, it's just another rematch. I'd like to see something fresh. Samoa Joe versus Bully Ray. Kurt Angle versus Bully Ray. Magnus versus Bully Ray.
I think Magnus versus Bully Ray. I mean, he's a young kid, but I think that would build up Magnus so much. Even like I said, even losing, you know, Bully's not gonna, hopefully don't lose the title on his first big defense. You know, not with the way they're going with momentum, but you never know with the way the writing is. But that'd be perfect. It would build Magnus up to a main event level. And then they could separate their rivalry and Magnus to go after somebody else and keep him in an upper echelon talent. Ooh, look, I wrote something else.
You gonna set in your resume now?
I think I'm too good for
them. I did have a little bit of problems with that. I didn't like Hardy going over. The match itself was good.
It was smart the way he did get over, though.
Yeah.
I like the fact that, you know, it was off of Angle's help.
Well, he did kill everybody, though. He did hit everybody with the twist of fate. And, you know, speaking of a guy that's overexposed, before we forget, we got our Thunder Lips count for the week.
Ready?
We had two Thunder Lips.
Yes, sir.
We've seen the Hawkster only twice this week, which is probably still one more time than we'd like to. However, not bad for the way the Angle's building and how he's an integral part of it. Now, before we go into the show recap, we want to talk about our rating system. Basically, we go 1 to 5, 5 being the best, 1 being the worst. To remind you guys, or to let you guys know that this is your first time watching one of our shows, a 1's a Garrett Bischoff, a 2's a Christian York, a 3's a James Storm, a 4's a Christopher Daniels, 5's a Kurt Angle. What would you give the show, Gary?
I'm going to give it a 3, a James Storm. It was missing a lot of points, but I was really high on the Bully Ray segment. The main event match, I wasn't happy with the outcome, but I did like the match. The King Ion Dutt match was a real eye-opener, and I did like the interaction with Rude, Aries, Daniels, and Kaz. Didn't care for the match, but I like the after effect.
I'm going to be a little bit more critical than you are. I'm going to give it a Christian York at 2. I did like certain aspects. The Bully Ray segments were great. The main event was a good match. Didn't like the outcome, which helps bring it down. AJ Styles and Storm, okay, not great. Morgan vs. Park, okay, not great. Taryn Terrell segment with Gail Kim and them, again,
okay, not great.
King Ion Dutt, good match. The tag match, I was bored with. There was times during watching the show I was struggling staying awake. The only real highlights were the Bully Ray segment, the X Division matches, and the main event, just because there was excitement to it. However, the excitement was killed as soon as we found out it was Jeff Hardy. And that's not a knock on Jeff Hardy. That's just, I'm tired of this match. Let me see something new. Mm-hmm. And that's why I'm rating it so low, in my opinion.
Feel you, player.
But basically, that's all I got to say about the show. Is there anything else you wanted to add?
That's it for me.
Well, my name is George Coles.
I'm Gary Rhodes.
And this has been Heel Heat.